Yeah, we back. Broly and Invincible, episode 10. This might be the best thumbnail I've ever made. I ain't even gonna lie. Anyway, let's get to it, man. The wind was a physical presence, a roaring river against his body as he followed the streak of pink and white through the bruised twilight sky. For Broly, the sensation was alien after weeks of stagnant confinement. Each gust felt like it was scrubbing away a layer of the dust that had settled over his spirit in that quiet room. He flew a careful, measured distance behind Eve, his own flight lacking its usual thunderous power. A conscious suppression, a leash kept painfully short. He pushed forward, closing the gap until he was flying abreast of her. The city sprawled beneath them, a geometrical pattern of light and shadow, looking deceptively fragile. Eve. His voice was a low rumble, torn away by the wind, but clear enough for her to hear. What you said at the window. What did you mean? She glanced over, her hair whipping around her face. Which part? All of it, he said, his brow furrowed. Building a world, not asking for permission. The concepts were so foreign, so active compared to the passive penance he had been serving. His world had shrunk to a single simple purpose: do no harm. The idea of building something felt like a distant, dangerous fantasy. Eve's gaze was fixed on the horizon, her expression resolute. I mean, I'm tired of just reacting. I'm tired of waiting for the next crisis, the next monster, the next villain, the next betrayal, and just putting out the fires. I want to be the one to pour water on the roots so the fires don't start in the first place. Broly was silent, processing his entire life. His entire life had been a reaction to threats, to his own rage, to the fears in others' eyes. Where are we going? He asked finally, the practical question a simpler anchor for his swirling thoughts. Home, she said, a small determined smile touching her lips. My home. I'll explain everything when we get there. It's easier to show you than to tell you. She banged slightly, leading him away from the dense city center toward the more spacious suburban neighborhoods. The flight continued, the silence between them now filled with a palpable sense of purpose, a stark and welcome contrast to the hollow quiet of the room he had just willingly left behind. Eve didn't lead him to a traditional house, but to the dense shadowed woods on the outskirts of town. They descended through a canopy of oak and pine, touching down on a soft bed of fallen needles. There, nestled in the sturdy intersecting boughs of three massive trees, was a structure that made Broly's eyes widen slightly. It wasn't a child's treehouse, it was a sanctuary of sorts, woven seamlessly into the forest itself. The walls and floor were made of living, interwoven wood, shaped and polished to a smooth gleam by her power. Sections of the walls were actually transparent looking crystal, offering a panoramic view of the starlit woods. A small self contained stream of clean water trickled through one corner, diverted and channeled by her will when she was making it, before cascading down in a gentle waterfall to the forest floor below. And the air smelled of sap, damp earth, and peace. This is. You made this? Broly rumbled, his voice softer than usual, as if he was afraid to disrupt the tranquility. I did, Eve said, a note of pride in her voice as she gestured for him to enter. It's home. Well, for now, anyway. Inside, it was Spartan but comfortable. A bed of moss and soft ferns in one corner, a table and chair formed from a single grown piece of wood, and a few neatly stacked books. It was the antithesis of the chaotic, blood-soaked battlegrounds he associated with his power. I left my parents' house, she stated, matter-of-factly, as she sat on the edge of the crystalline table. The arguments, they couldn't see that this, she gestured to herself, then to the world outside, isn't just a phase. It's my life purpose. So I decided to stop arguing and just start doing. Broly listened, a familiar ache within his chest. He understood the desire to escape a cage, even a gilded one. For the past few weeks, I haven't been waiting for a guardian alert, she continued, her eyes all right, with a fervor he'd never seen before. I've been going where I'm needed. I've been to drought-stricken villages in Africa, creating permanent self-sustaining reservoirs of clean water from nothing. I've been to fault lines, reinforcing them with carbon fiber lattices deep underground to mitigate earthquakes. I don't just want to stop disasters, I try to make it so they don't happen in the first place. I'm using my power to build, Broly, to feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, to heal the land. A genuine, slow, spreading smile touched Broly's lips. It was the first unforced expression of happiness he'd felt in what felt like an eternity. That is good, Eve. That is a worthy path. He meant it. In a world of violence and destruction, her quiet, constructive revolution felt more heroic than any battle he'd ever witnessed. But then his smile faded, replaced by a confused frown. He was happy for her, truly, but the unspoken question hung in the air between them. What does any of this have to do with me? He was a weapon, a breaker of things. He didn't belong in this narrative of creation and healing. As if reasoning his mind, Eve hopped off the table and stood before him, her expression turning earnest, her gaze looking locking with his. Which is why I asked you to come here, she said, her voice firm yet gentle. I'm not going to stop, and I don't want to do it alone, Broly. I want you to come with me. The words landed not with a shout, but with the quiet force of a tectonic plate shifting. Broly physically recoiled, taking a half step back. Huh? As if struck, his breath hitched. The massive continent shattering Saiyan looked for a moment like a startled child. With you, he repeated, the words a disbelieving whisper. His mind, so accustomed to thinking of himself as a liability, a catastrophe waiting to happen, scrambled to process the offer. She wasn't asking him to be a hero or a guardian. She was asking him to be a partner of sorts, to travel the world, not to fight, but to help. The sheer staggering normality and profound purpose of it all was utterly terrifying. She was offering him a key to a cage he thought was permanent, and he was terrified to even reach for it. The flickering blue light of the television painted the Grayson living room in a cold, clinical tones. Debbie sat curled at one end of the couch, a bowl of untouched popcorn in her lap. Nolan occupied the other end, the picture of calm, reading a thick novel. As the investigation into the massacre of the Guardians of the Globe continues, new disturbing theories are emerging. The newscaster's voice was a somber, dramatic baritone. The screen switched from the anchor desk to a grainy paused image of Broly, standing amidst the ruins of the casino, his face smudged with dirt, his expression hollow and haunted. Debbie sat up straighter, the popcorn bowl tilting precariously. Could this teenager, the voiceover continued, an individual of immense, unexplained power, be the one responsible for eliminating our beloved protectors? Sources within the Global Defense Agency confirmed his presence was logged near the Guardian headquarters on that night of the attack, and the scale of destruction seen in last month's Battle Beast incident certainly matches the click. The room plunged into a sudden ringing silence, broken only by Debbie's sharp, indignant breath. She had snatched up the remote and stabbed the power button, her knuckles white. That is unbelievable, she snapped, turning to Nolan, her eyes blazing with a protective fury. Broly? Broly killed the Guardians? That's the most ridiculous thing I've heard. He was here, Nolan. In this house. He ate 3 helpings of my meatloaf and fell asleep on the floor watching cartoons with Mark that very night. If he had just gone on a rampage and nearly killed you, you would have recognized him. You would have said something. Her voice was trembling, a mix of anger and a deep maternal hurt on behalf of the gentle giant she considered family. Nolan slowly marked his page and set the book down. He turned to her, his expression a masterclass in placid reassurance. He reached out and placed a calming hand on her knee. Debbie, don't, he said, his voice a low, steadying rumble. Don't waste your energy getting upset over gossip and speculation. You know how the media is. They need a villain, and a mysterious, powerful boy is an easy target. He gave her knee a gentle squeeze, his eyes sincere and unwavering. We know the truth, and that's what matters. Let them talk. It doesn't change anything. Debbie searched his face, her anger slowly deflating into a wary frustration. He was so calm, so certain. It should have been comforting, but as she looked away, hugging a cushion to her chest, she couldn't shake the chill the broadcaster left in the room. Nolan's smile was gentle, but internally his mind was cold and clear. The narrative was spiraling perfectly. The boy was being isolated, painted as the monster, and he, the victimized hero, was in the perfect position to control the very outcome. The air in the clandestine lab hummed with the low thrum of advanced machinery and the acrid smell of ozone. The Mahler twins, 2 hulking figures of identical genetic perfection, stood back from their workbench, their eyes gleaming with triumph. On the table before them, the armored form of Robot lay inert, its chest plate open like a grotesque flower. Wire snaked from the armor to a nearby cloning vat where a perfect vacant-eye duplicate of Rex floated in amber fluid. Yeah, this is just me doing the, Robot becomes Rex thing. Y'all know what happened. It is done. It is done, the first Mahler intoned, a smirk twisting his lips. The consciousness transfer is complete. Your new fully organic body awaits activation. The second Mahler crossed his massive arms. Of course it's done. We are brilliant. The synaptic bridge is stable, initiating final boot sequence. There was a soft hiss. As the connections disengaged, the Rexplode clone and the vat shuddered, its eyes snapping open. The twins nodded, expecting payment or at least a grudging acknowledgement of their partnership. But then, Robot stood. Its move was now robot armor stood. Its move was now possessing a fluid biological grace it had previously lacked. Then the chest plate snapped open, and its lenses focused on the twins, and the voice of urge was cold, final, and utterly in control. The terms of our arrangement are concluded, Robot stated. You have provided a service, and now you will return to your maximum security confinement. Your recapture will solidify my standing with the GDA and remove 2 volatile elements from the board. The twins' smirks vanished, replaced by an identical mask of outraged betrayal. You deceitful little, one began, his fist clenching. But before he could finish the insult, the entire wall of the lab exploded inwards. It wasn't an explosion of fire and shrapnel, but a concentrated beam of yellow energy. So pure and potent, it vaporized reinforced concrete and steel on contact. The concussive force was a physical wall slamming into the robot armor with the power of a meteor strike. There was no time to react, no strategy to deploy. The armor was hit with a force it had never been designed to withstand. The systems overloading in the shower of sparks. It was hurled across the room and buried under a cascade of collapsed ceiling and mangled equipment, leaving only a single twitching arm visible from the rubble. Meanwhile, the new cloned Rexplode that Robot had transferred his consciousness in had been guarded by other armors as debris fell over them. Through the new smoldering hole in the wall, a figure stepped out of the night. He was tall, clad in a worn, practical combat gear. His face was etched with grim lines of a lifetime of bitterness and obsession. His hair was streaked with gray strands, but his eyes burned with a fanatical intensity. Paragus surveyed the scene, his gaze passing dismissively over the stunned Mahler twins and the incapacitated robot. The lead Mahler recovered first, his pride stung. Who are you? This is how you owe me your freedom, Paragus interrupted, his voice a low gravelly command that brooked no argument. He gestured with his chin toward the smoldering rubble that had been their future prison. I have just cleared your debt, and in doing so I have demonstrated that I possess resources and information that you clearly lack. He took a step forward, his eyes narrowing. Now, we are going to be in touch. I have a project, a containment device, a collar of unparalleled sophistication, key to a unique and volatile biometric signature. You will provide the technical expertise that I lack in some instances. He didn't wait for their agreement. He simply turned, the implicit threat of the power that had just failed to guard it hanging in the air like smoke. The work begins soon. Do not make me regret this investment. And with that, he vanished back into the darkness, leaving the Mahler twins standing amidst the ruins, free, bewildered, and now inextricably bound to a new terrifying patron. The tranquil air of the treehouse sanctuary grew heavy with the weight of Broly's refusal. He stood, a monument of tension, his back partially turned to Eve as if shielding her from the danger he represented. I cannot, he rumbled. The words stick with a finality that spoke of countless internal battles lost. Your path, it is one of creation, of healing. It is good. It is pure. He finally looked at her, his dark eyes shadowed with a familiar, gut-wrenching shame. My presence only defiles such things. On the island, with the Flaxons in the city, even when I'm trying to help, the outcome is the same. I am a weapon, Eve, a sword that cannot be sheathed without cutting the one who holds it. Eventually I will hurt those around you, or I will hurt you. That risk is almost absolute. He expected an argument, a plea or worse, pity. Instead, Eve's expression hardened into one of fierce rejection. She stepped forward, not stopping until she was well within his personal space, forcing him to meet her unwavering gaze. No, she stated, her voice sharp, cutting through his resignation. That's a cage that you've built for yourself, Broly, and I'm not going to let you live in it. You keep looking at your power as one single, uncontrollable thing, a flood. But what if it isn't? What if it's a river with 1,000 tributaries? She gestured around her treehouse at the living wood and the crystal clear water. My power isn't just one thing either. I don't just make pink stuff. I understand some molecular bonds, atomic structures, and kinetic energy. I learn control by breaking my power down into its components. You're trying to control the entire storm at once. You've never tried to just make it rain. Broly stared at her, the analogy striking a chord deep within him. The concept was so foreign, so granular compared to the all-consuming tidal wave of his own rage. Look, I'm not asking you to be a hero or to fight anyone, Eve continued, her tone softening into a challenge. I'm asking you to be a pair of hands. The strongest hands on the planet. I'm asking you to come with me just once and see what happens when that power is pointed at a problem that isn't a person to punch. Don't say no. Not yet. She placed a hand on his massive forearm, the touch light but firm. Come on, one mission. Just one. If you still believe you don't belong there after that, I'll never ask you again. But you owe yourself the chance to see if the man can be more than just the monster he's made within his own mind. The silence stretched, filled only by the rustle of leaves. The part of him that was all fear and guilt screamed to retreat, to spare the world his presence. But Eve's words, her stubborn, illogical faith, had planted a seed of something else, a fragile, terrifying curiosity. With a slow, shuddering breath that seemed to come from the depths of his soul, he gave a single begrudging nod. Fine, one mission, he echoed, the words a vow and a surrender. The Mahler twins then go to another location and still resurrect the mortal man, and they can't control him, and he flies through the roof enraged because he remembers Omni-Man's betrayal. So that just happens. Same thing like in canon. Anyway. The wind whipped through Broly's hair, a sensation that was slowly shifting from alien to familiar. Flying beside Eve with a destination that wasn't a battlefield felt like using a muscle he'd forgotten he had. The oppressive weight in his chest was still there, but it was lighter. Below, a familiar SUV wound its way along a scenic highway. Eve, spotting it too, gestured it downward. Hey, isn't that... Broly didn't need to finish. He recognized the car. With a slight shift of his trajectory, he and Eve descended, landing smoothly on the roadside ahead of the vehicle, causing it to slow and pull over. The doors flew open. Mark and Amber spilled out, their faces initially etched with concern, that melted into warm, genuine smiles when they saw who it was. Broly, Mark explained, rushing forward. You're out, man. Amber was right behind him, her gaze flickering between Broly and Eve with keen interest. We were getting worried about you, big guy. Before Broly could muster a response, a third head popped out from the back seat. William leaned out in the window, a theatrical grin on his face. Well, 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 if it isn't the strong, silent, and mysteriously traumatized type. Look, if you ever decide you want to get out of the house and into some extracurriculars with someone willing, his eyes then slid to Eve, and his grin turned into a knowing smirk. Then again, it looks like I've got some tough competition. He winked exaggerately at Eve. A vivid hot blush instantly crawled up Broly's neck, coloring his cheeks and the tips of his ears. He stared fixedly at a crack in the asphalt, his usual silence now radiating profound awkwardness. Eve, utterly unfazed, rolled her eyes, refusing to acknowledge William's comment. We're not here for your commentary, William, she said, her tone dry. She turned her attention back to Mark and Amber, her expression becoming serious, yet filled with a determined energy. I'm taking Broly on a mission. Mark's eyebrows shot up. A mission? Like a GDA thing? Is something happening? He instinctively glanced at the sky as if expecting an alien armada. No, nothing like that, Eve said, shaking her head. Not that kind of mission. A humanitarian one. Broly finally found his voice low and gruff, more for Mark's benefit than anyone else's. She wants to show me that my power can be used for more than fighting. Exactly, Eve affirmed, turning to fully face the group, her passion for the subject animating her. Mark, you and your dad, the Guardians, your first, last, and only tool, most of the time, is your strength. You solve problems by hitting them until they stop moving. And don't get me wrong, she added, seeing the protest from on Mark's lips. The world definitely needs that. It needs shields, it needs hammers, but it also needs so much more. She gestured to the world around them. What about the problems you can't punch? A drought starving a village. You can't fight a lack of rain. A fault line about to snap and swallow up a city. You can't put an earthquake in a headlock. A famine, a plague. There are the crises that kill more people than any supervillain ever will. There are crises that kill more people than any supervillain ever will. Her gaze was intense, locked on Broly now. But her words were for everyone. My power isn't about destruction. It's about understanding the rules of reality and asking them to politely to change. I can see the structure of a water molecule and convince them to come together. To gather. I don't stop disasters. I can try to make it so they never happen in the first place. What I'm saying is I'm trying to use my power to build a better world. She took a step closer to Broly, her voice softening but losing none of its conviction. And you, Broly, you have more power than anyone I've ever seen. You think of it as a bomb, but what if it's not? What if it's the world's most powerful engine? I'm not asking you to fight. I'm asking you to be a pair of hands, the strongest hands on the planet. Imagine using that strength not to level a mountain, but to carefully move one to divert a lava flow from a village, or to lift a fallen skyscraper with such precision that it would pull every single survivor from the rubble without causing a secondary collapse. You could carve a new riverbed for a starving region in an afternoon. You could be the ultimate tool for creation. If someone just showed you how to hold the chisel instead of the hammer. The roadside was silent, save for the whisper of the wind. William's smirk had vanished, replaced by a look of stunned respect. Amber was watching Eve with awe, and Mark looked thoughtful, as if a door in his mind had been opened to a room he never really thought existed. Broly stood perfectly still, Eve's words painting a picture in his mind so alien and so beautiful and so utterly terrifying in its hope that it threatened to shatter the foundations of his own self-loathing. She wasn't offering him a suit or a call sign. She was offering him a purpose that didn't require him to be a monster. She was asking him to build, and for the first time he was truly considering if his hands, stained with so much destruction, were even capable of such a thing. The one mission he had agreed to now felt less like a concession, and more like the first step onto a fragile but breathtakingly new path. The hope in Eve's eyes was palpable, a live wire of excitement as she finished outlining her vision. Broly was actually listening, considering it. Mark looked thoughtful, not dismissive. For the first time, it felt like a terror beginning, a crack of light in the relentless darkness. The sharp, insistent chirp of her encrypted GDA communicator was a needle popping the bubble, however. The mood on their roadside shattered instantly. Eve's smile vanished, replaced by a professional mask as if she tapped the device on her wrist. Cecil Stedman's grim holographic face flickered to life, his expression graver than she'd ever seen it. Eve, we have a situation, a critical one. Cecil's voice was stripped of its usual bureaucratic calm, replaced by a raw, urgent edge. I need you at the Pentagon headquarters immediately. Eve's brow furrowed. Cecil, I'm in the middle of something, Kenneth. No. He cut her off, his tone leaving no room for argument. It cannot wait. This is a global priority, Eve. The kind that gets cities erased from maps if we mishandle it. His holographic eyes seemed to scan the environment behind her, though he couldn't actually see it. And you are to come alone. Do you understand me? Absolutely alone. A cold knot tightened in Eve's stomach. Alone? Cecil, Mark and Broly are right here with me. If this is a threat, we could... Invincible is to return to his house, Cecil stated, his voice becoming cold and deliberate, as if choosing each word with surgical precision. And Broly is to remain with Invincible. Is that clear? The specificity of the order, the deliberate exclusion of Broly and Mark sent a chill down her spine. It wasn't just standard protocol, it seemed targeted. Cecil, what's this about? If this is about the casino, he's standing right here and he's fine. This is not a debriefing, Eve. It is a directive. Cecil's voice dropped, becoming almost a whisper, yet it carried the weight of an avalanche. The integrity of this planet is hanging by a thread. The decisions made in the next few hours will determine whether there even is a tomorrow. I need your mind, Eve, your control, not another blunt instrument, not a variable I cannot predict. So just come to the Pentagon now and come alone. That is an order. The transmission cut out, leaving a hollow silence in its wake. The others stared at her. Mark looked confused and a little hurt by that. What was that about? Why can't we help? Eve slowly lowered her wrist, her mind racing. Cecil's words echoed. A variable I cannot predict. He seemed scared, and he seemed to deliberately want to keep Mark out of the loop, and his fear was squarely unmistakably focused on Broly for some reason. She forced the calm she didn't really feel, turning to the group. I have to go. Cecil has something critical he needs to discuss in private. Private? Mark echoed, his hero instincts bristling. Eve, if the world's about to end, we should all be there. It's not that, she lied smoothly, her gaze flicking to Broly for a fraction of a second. He was watching her, His earlier openness gone, replaced by a familiar, guarded stillness. He had heard the tension in her voice, understood the subtext of being excluded. It's a sensitive diplomatic thing, probably. He just needs me. She took a step back, already calculating the fastest route to the Pentagon. I'm sorry. I have to go. We'll pick this up later. With one last apologetic look at Mark and Broly and Amber, a look that promised that this wasn't over, she shot into the sky, leaving the group in a cloud of dust and confusion. The hopeful future she had been painting moments before now felt like a distant dream, threatened by a shadow that she couldn't even yet see. The flight to the Pentagon was a blur of conflicting emotions for Eve. The hopeful, sunlit moment on the roadside felt a world away, soured by Cecil's cryptic, ironclad command. Alone. The word echoed in her mind, a deliberate wall built between her and the two most powerful allies that she knew. She landed on the designated helipad, her boots touching down with a sharp click that mirrored her irritation. The military personnel stationed there was stiff, their salutes too perfect, the air thick with tension she could almost taste. She was ushered through sterile, echoing corridors deep into subterranean levels, her escort silent. The door at the Strategic Command Center hissed open, and Eve stepped inside, ready to unload her frustration on Cecil. Cecil, what the hell was that? She began, her voice sharp, cutting through the low hum of servers and holographic displays. You can't just... The words died in her throat. The room was a monument to crisis. Cecil stood before a massive central hollow table, his face etched with a wariness that seemed to go down to the bone. Flanking him were grim-faced 4-star generals and the GDA senior staff, but it was the figure in the center of the room that stole the air in Eve's lungs. It was immortal. He was alive. Not just alive, he was vibrating with a palpable seismic rage. He stood in a simple blue jumpsuit, his massive fists clenched so tightly his knuckles were bone white, his eyes wide and burning with a terrifying mixture of trauma and fury. The raw, unhinged disdain radiating from him made the very air feel thin and charged. Cecil didn't acknowledge her initial outburst. Her gaze was heavy and final. His gaze heavy and final. Eve, thank you for coming. He gestured to the resurrected hero. As you can see, we've had a unexpected breakthrough. Immortal's head snapped toward her, his eyes wild, searching her face as if looking for an enemy. He lied to us. Immortal growled, his voice a raw, gravelly thing shredded by a scream that had lasted for weeks in the darkness of death. He looked us in the eye. He considered us and called us comrades. Who? Eve asked, her mind reeling, still trying to catch up. The hope from her treehouse, the vision of a better world, felt naive and childish in the face of this primal anguish. Cecil's jaw tightened. The DNA matches to the Guardian's killer, now with Immortal here. We have a witness who revealed to us that the killer is the only survivor. Eve's blood ran cold at that. Immortal took a shuddering step forward, his finger stabbing toward the hologram, his entire body trembling with the effort of containing his rage. It was Nolan, he snarled, the name exploding in the room like a bomb. Omni-Man. He murdered us. He killed Darkwing, Beats, all of us. The legendary hero's voice broke into a choked, horrifying sob of pure, unadulterated hatred. He doubled over, gripping the edge of the hollow table, his shoulders heaving. The world tilted on its axis for Eve. Her jaw went slack. The Pentagon, Cecil, the generals, it all faded into a muffled roar. Omni-Man, the invincible pillar of the planet, Mark's father, Debbie's husband, the man who saved the world more times than anyone could count, the foundation of everything she thought she knew about heroism and safety, crumbled to dust in an instant, leaving only a yawning, terrifying chasm. The murderer wasn't an alien armada or a rampaging Saiyan. It was the man who had been smiling at them from their cereal boxes. Alright, we're going to end it there. And I got like 4 episodes left until the end of the Invincible Season 1. Broly and Invincible Season 1. So yeah, like, share, and all that. Comment, super chats, all that. Peace.